let's get into some of those things because, of course, no matter who's on the field, there will be people on the field. There will be football being played on Sunday night, barring any unforeseen circumstances, which in the year 2020 are certainly possible. But what do you think, Cody, are the matchups that we're going to be having to watch for on Sunday night?
Yeah, I mean, I know from WSU's perspective, and at least what I'm thinking, the biggest thing that scares me about this team is probably the wide receiver. USC has a very stacked group of wide receivers, and WSU fans know what a good wide receiver core is. I mean, that's been one of the strengths of this team for a while. But there's a lot of talent on that group, and the WSU secondary. They've been all right so far, but that's probably been the biggest weakness of this team for a handful of years. They haven't been tested too much, but I mean, Oregon, while good, don't have what this USC has. So I'm interested to see how some of those matchups go because I don't know how WSU defends for wide receivers that are out there at once. They like to run a base nickel formation, but I mean I don't know. They get a man up. Are they going to play zone? Like Clovis scares me, but mainly because of the weapons that he has. So I'm really going to be looking at those matchups for those wide receivers and see what they're able to do.
Yeah, those are going to be matchups to watch for sure. I think the one thing that might work in Washington State's favor is or are the questions around USC's offensive line. And I know Scott's saying that the O line will be fine. I think it will be fully staffed, but again, it all comes down to how ready are those guys to go. Are they going to be able to play a full 60 minutes of football? We don't know if that's the case. How many guys are they going to need to depend upon? And the group, like even the fully staffed, fully healthy group, hasn't been all that great this season. I mean, AVT has been awesome. Of course, he's been like one of the best left tackles in the entire country, but beyond him, and especially on the right side, the Utah game was better. They were definitely better. So I will give them that. But we're going to need to see that trend continue, or else Wazoo's DBs are certainly going to have, I guess, a much easier task on their hands. But I want to get into something else that Scott said as well, which is watch the running game improvement this game for the Trojans. Bank on it, and that's something that it's another one of those I have to see it to believe it kind of things. I wanted to believe that prior to this year. I thought that the running backs were going to be awesome this year, and honestly, when they've been used, they have been. They just need to be used more. I don't know why they haven't been using them enough. And again, if the offensive line is not up to its usual standard, then that's going to impact the running game as well. So we're going to have to see about that. To me, it's like stop Delora and USC should be pretty fine because we've seen it's not just mobile quarterbacks that are the Trojans' kryptonite, so to speak. It's any quarterback that knows how to remotely use his legs, and Delora is certainly that plus a lot more. So if USC's defense can't stop him, especially if Max Borghi is back, the running game can just carve through USC all night. So that's going to be something that essentially when USC was preparing to play Colorado, which is a game that obviously didn't happen, it was like, stop Broussard and like USC will be fine, right? Because Trojans really get into trouble when guys run for 230 yards a game and then the quarterback adds like 95 to 105 more of his own. And if that's something that we see on Sunday night, it's going to be a long night for the Trojans, at least on the defensive side. So yeah, to me, it's like, I'm confident Slovis is going to be fine. I think Slovis has been fine. I think it all comes back to the offensive line for him. For me, the offense needs to be more imaginative. Graham Harrell's play calling has been rather predictable this year. They need to utilize the run game more, and I think that if they can do that, they can take advantage of a Washington State defense that's like fine, but it's not great, so to speak.
Yeah, I see your boy Scott in the chat saying they shut down Jaden Daniels. He's the epitome of running QB. Well, I think he might be the second best Jaden in the conference. So, I mean, we're going to see. This is definitely going to be Delora's biggest test. Oregon, we kind of got to see that he's capable of holding his own because, that could have easily been a game where he threw interceptions and he, the moment was too big for him. And it clearly was not. He played great But now he kind of has to do the same thing on the road. And obviously he didn't play well enough to win against Oregon. So that's definitely going to be huge. And what this offense is able to do, how are they going to be able to unleash Delora? We've yet to see him have that big kind of put the team on his back, rack up stats type game. And so if he's able to have that, then I think this WSU team is going to be, in a really good spot. And that's going to come down to, the receivers. I mentioned USC's good receivers, but WSU has the two best receivers in receiving yards per game. Obviously, he's got two really good receivers in Renard Bell and Travell Harris on the inside, but the outside receivers have been virtually non-existent. And you're not going to beat USC with only two receivers. So that's going to be huge. I know USC has some talent in the secondary. So I think Delora's success, I think he's proven that, he can do it himself. And so I think it's going to come down to if we can get a third, I don't even want to say receiver, but just option. Obviously, Max Borghi plays, and I think he can be that third receiving option in the game as well as being that, guy on the ground. But the Cougar running game, whether it's Borghi or McIntosh, I'm like happy with it. I'm very confident in it. The line is great. McIntosh has proven to be a great back in this conference, so I think the running game will be there. But it's going to come down to what he has, and if he's throwing to two slot receivers all game, then I just don't know if that's going to be enough.
Yeah, and USC has talent in the secondary for sure, but for a lot of this season, even for a lot of last season, it's been undisciplined talent, and that's something that really the Trojans can't afford again, because it's been, when they're in man coverage, they've done a fine job, but it's been the stupid, unnecessary roughnesses, the unnecessary PIs that they didn't really need to commit, that end up costing the unit yards. And the other thing is Jaden Daniels ran for like 111 yards against SC. So, it certainly could have been worse, but then I think Grant Gunnell ran for something like 63, 64, 65 yards against the Trojans in game 2, if you don't account for sacks, that is. And then Jake Bentley in the Utah game didn't really kill them on the ground, but he had a couple runs, or he had one run that sticks out. I think it was like 47 yards. It ended up getting a lot of it was called back for offensive, something like taunting, or I don't know, some kind of unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So again, it's just those big plays, and it's the stupid penalties that USC really can't afford to give up in this kind of game with an offense that, you said they have two receivers, and then after that there's kind of a drop off, but there are still playmakers there, and you've got a quarterback that knows how to utilize them. So for USC, it's all about getting pressure on the quarterback. Also, it's like, if you give him 7 seconds in the pocket on every single play, you can't cover guys for the entire play. So, and that's also something that USC improved upon in the Utah game for sure, although the Utes offensive line was pretty terrible that game. So, it's basically going to be like, if we see a USC that we saw in Utah, like a smart team, a relatively disciplined team, a team that, got pressure, a team whose offensive line was playing somewhat well, the Trojans should be fine. If we see a rusty team, a team that looks unprepared, especially on the defensive side of the ball, like they did against Arizona and State, it's going to be a long one. So, but either way, this is a Trojan offense that, as you said, has the weapons and X factors, I guess, to put up 41 points a game. So, USC, if they can stop Delora and they can stop those top two receivers, I think they should be okay. But